We are live for day 11 of the Galfond challenge between Phil Galfond and Actionfreak. Phil coming into today's session up 6.5 buy-ins in total, and today we will be crossing the halfway mark of this challenge. Joining me today in the booth is none other than PLO WizKid, Vision's. Well, I was trying to think. Vision's better half, Richard Gayler. How you doing, man?
Hey, good morning. Well, let the cards fall as they may. Was this 3-bet call check pot?
It was indeed.
This is quite a wager by Phil in that case. Do you think he should ever bet non-pot here? I think I make the mistake of doing that.
He does bet full pot, and I mean, Freak drilling this river, I feel. Ten of hearts.
Phil's gonna have so many hands that are, drawing to 25% or less. Pot calling there seems pretty aggressive. And he's not gonna have many wheels. Wow, the bet call lead. Freak saying he check called with something like kings of hearts or jacks of hearts, ace jack of hearts, something like that.
Does he not just stick his kings with hearts in on the turn, like kings with like?
Well, the simplest answer is he should probably mix, but hard to say. So most people lean one way or the other.
And Phil got to cool this down with a hand like 2-pair with like a jack of hearts blocker or something along those lines.
Yeah, ace queen jack of hearts is a pretty good hand to have here, but it's hard to see what Freak could call with that he then turns into a bluff, something like ace king 5 king of hearts. But oftentimes that's just going to go with it on the turn himself.
Had a pretty chill day yesterday, Richard, in the dirty basement out in Denver.
Well, yeah, a day spent prepping and making videos and just, oh, here we have a pot-sized bet on Jack 10-6 Rainbow. When Freak has potted it in a 3-bet pot so far on a texture similar to this, he has never pot folded.
That is a very good point. See if Phil wants to run it.
Basically saying, overpair getter. Let's just get it in.
Some like queen high, king high rundowns, even some of the lower end 9-8, 7-6 hands.
So I think 9-8-7 you want to put into a smaller sizing. I think it's fine to split sizings here. You definitely could have some draws.
No, not Freak, Phil. I was talking about.
Oh.
Phil could have.
Yeah, I think there's just call.
Very interesting hand card.
If you don't expect any fold equity, then you just peel.
Caught a pot on the turn, 4K into 16K.
Yeah, this spot in a macro sense works as Phil calling with a few traps and then raising most of his single jack X and trying to realize his equity of the rest of his hands that are performing fine against mostly overpairs but are dead to boats but aren't too worried about boats. But Freak should take the same, small turn jam river with Jack 10, for instance.
Phil does call. Diamonds getting there on the river, 24K in the middle, 18K behind.
Yeah, Freak should be barreling with a decent amount of his diamonds.
And he does stick him in.
I think Phil has trouble correctly calling here.
Has trouble correctly calling, did you say?
Yeah. You can't manufacture diamonds out of thin air, and you've got so many brick draws, and you're something like ace king 10 might call fold. Like it's pretty hard to see calling. Wow, there's the Jack 10, and there's the big draw that gets there.
King high diamonds on the river for Phil, and Freak turning the nut full house.
Yeah, I think the hand plays itself. Freak knows that Phil knows that he's going to be betting turn very wide for that small sizing, so sticking in his super netted hand, I think well played.
Bit of a cooler to start today's session off. Phil losing a 60k pot straight off the bat. Kontonatsios saying, Richard, you have such a sweet voice. I wish you could do an audiobook. I'll buy that.
Just narrating it or writing it?
Yeah, that's a good point. But I'm assuming narrating it. I mean, it would have to be something to do with PLO vision. So you could arguably write it and then, create an audiobook as well.
Look at this check raise pot. We've seen Phil check raise of future blockers, as in future nut blockers, in the past. So he's not just the nuts here. He has planned ahead and will have a decent amount of king or queen of heart blockers that are check raise bet jamming. He'll shut down with some of those queens on this river.
Let's stick it in. Another 42k pot.
Mm-hmm.
Not being spoiled for action. 10 minutes into the stream.
Yeah, it's hard for there to be enough bluffs here because there's very few natural straight draws that have big hearts. You have to have basically like King Jack 10 or Queen Jack 10 with a single heart there. And
Ooh. Okay, I see how today's gonna go. Nuts against second nuts. 60k pot going Phil's way. Now that I'm 25 and I've been around the block a little bit. I'm talking when I was like 20 years old and having like a 5k roll and sitting down in a 2-5 game with like 1k. That's the type of nonsense that I was up to back in the day.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to think back. I don't think I ever. I mean, I did some not the wisest choices, but I don't think I ever had that bad of a day. I mean, I've lost what should have been half of my roll when I was backed, but when you're backed, you've got a lot of liberty. Love this raise from Freak. Phil is sticking a ton of his overpairs into bet fold here.
Yeah, it seems like in these 3-bet pots that Phil's going for a third sizing, he just keeps getting put in the bin by Freak. Yeah. Even on a board as dry as Jack 7-3, I mean, he's super deep here. I feel like a mandatory float with anything like kings with a backdoor flush draw, queens backdoor flush draw.
You can't really float with those hands because your equity realization this deep is going to be so poor. Phil fighting back.
Could potentially have a 100k pot if Freak decides to go with his hand. Are we ever just going to see a hand like 7, 8, 9, 10 put in 160 big blinds?
On the flop from Freak?
Yeah, after he's raised and now facing a 3-bet.
I think that just calls.
Well, money going in and top 2 and a gut shot, no good against bottom set and a gut shot, and Freak winning $102,000 pot. How do you feel about those hands at Showdown, Richard?
I think extremely reasonable by both players.
Phil down around about 2 buy-ins.
What did you think of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I expected more. Not gonna lie, it was one of them movies that I kind of hyped myself up for and then left the movie theater somewhat disappointed.
I get
However, still think it was obviously a great story, especially the ending and what it was based around.
100%. I mean, the Bruce Lee scene.
The Bruce Lee scene was actually quite. What's the word I'm looking for? It caused a bit of trouble, didn't it?
Yeah, culturally.
Yeah, which I'm not surprised, but I mean, it's
a Tarantino film.
I was about to say it's Tarantino, so.
Yeah, so Phil's gonna have to play very high frequency check over on table life roll. This spot is where the imposition player gets to rep or bet their straights. You always will see reaching down to like King 10-9, that kind of hand, a couple sets, 8-8-7. If Freak shows up with that, he'll be betting like this as well. But generally it's 57-10-7, spades, gutter, King Jack 10 possibly as a bluff.
Yeah, really
Huge,
interesting run out.
yeah, huge river for Phil. We should see a decent amount of donk jams here.
5 of spades rolling off 27k in the middle. Does play his check.
Yeah, by declining here, my I feel much less optimistic about Phil's chances here. Donk jam with no naked spade there. You know, he had no spade. But he had the hand that would like to. You know, bottom 2, middle 2 with straight blocker. It's a pretty good hand to turn into a bluff there because you're basically never winning a showdown, ever. And if you do check and they have worse than you, they're bluffing with it, so you're just not winning a showdown. And it's towards the bottom of your range, almost stone bottom. So you are somewhat incentivized to jam with it, but not having a spade, Phil didn't find that bluff. Phil taking on the pot size bets and 3-bet pots. Have you seen this before? I don't think I've seen Phil pot this texture before.
Not after it going on table bankroll, you mean?
Table bankroll, yeah.
Not. No, he's been going for the third sizing most of the time.
This is the first pot size bet I've seen. Phil is adjusting his strategy.
I mean, we had a similar hand. What 10 minutes ago? Jack 7-3 at the start of the session. Rainbow where they got it in.
Did he pot
Phil
flop?
bet one. He continued for 1/3. That's what I'm saying. Is that you're right in the sense that he's adjusting his strategy.
Yeah, although this board's fundamentally different to Jack 7-3. Not to nitpick, but there's so many hands that are pair plus gutter that are doing quite well against aces on Jack 7-3, whereas on Jack 6 deuce you have hardly any of those.
It's very true.
So in the lab, perhaps mimicking Actionfreak. If you can't beat him, join him. Well, he is up 200,000 euros and potting here. I mean, this spot fundamentally just works out as, did you turn 2 pair? Did you turn a massive draw? If not, fold. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, we're seeing a river. King, Jack, 9, 5. Okay, we fold. The toughest spot here is at what section of his pairs does he start calling? Because Phil is leveraging his aces, kings, queens advantage. If Freak has queen, queen, 5, 7, no spade, does he call? Probably not.
48,000 in the middle, SPR of 0.3.
Yeah, we see him stick it in
getting
here.
there on the river. Does Phil just shut down with aces and kings with a high spade blocker?
Yeah, I mean, it's so gross if you have naked aces. But whenever he pots turn, he's going to have turned a bunch of flush draws.
That's what I thought as well. I mean, I'm quite surprised to see him shut down on this river.
Well, he could be trapping, but there's just not too many hands to induce from. There is the trap.
Wow, there it is. There it is. Phil Galfond winning an $81,000 pot. Without, exaggerating, okay? We could a round trip of Bulgaria and stay in, 5-star accommodation for a month for 1.5k, and that's with renting a car as well. So just around all of the peaks, the beaches, go down to the east coast, drive along the south, the south of the border near Greece. You really enjoy it, man.
I'm not sure if this is your way of asking me out, but yeah, let's do it.
We pulled, chat. We finally pulled. Murray St. Henry's in love again. So cute to see.
Yeah, three bet and flop bet. Surprised to see Phil not pile here. Maybe he thinks that Freak has too many 2-pair combos on this turn. Maybe shutting down to something like Ace, Jack, 9 hearts that wants to play his check call. You'd typically expect Phil to be barreling most of his hearts, but a lot of his hearts of showdown that don't just want to stack off can bet check. He also has a bunch of, for instance, naked top pairs or over pairs with single heart that wants to bluff here. Once he checks this river, I am not too optimistic about him in this spot. Freak should be abusing him here. And Freak getting picked off again. Phil, Trap City.
Yeah, where is Thallow? Oh, mind you, it's pretty early. It's probably up grinding all night. Spoke to him yesterday for a bit.
So, Phil stabbing versus Miss C-bet over on 886 two-tone. He should have a large amount of hands that are looking to bet flop, some of which shut down on the turn. I mean, I could run it, but if I had to guess, something like 40 to 50% of his range probably stabbing here. Something absurd. I'm actually going to check it out. I'm curious.
He continues for pot.
Yeah, I think this is over-polarizing, but he's so deep that this might be the default sizing. I mean, do you think that he's bet jamming his 8-6, or that he's playing it as check on flop?
I mean, at this SPR, I think it's continuing for pot, but it is one of them spots that if he does bet something along the lines of, does he ever bet like a queen high, king high bluff for that sizing? I don't know. I guess we're about to find out. I mean, 32 in the middle. Quick check from Freak. Action on Phil.
Yeah, I mean, Freak's going to have so many big flushes here. It's a question of, does Phil try and rep the boat? But he just has so few boats. 6-6 being like the dominant boat here, and he goes for it.
Wow. Freak calls a $98,000 pot. Pretty quick pot size bet from Phil.
So this 4 in the river gets rid of some of Phil's 57 that wants to bluff. So Phil's bluffing region decreases in size, while his value region pretty constant turn to river, although he has a few more boats now. Something like 10-9-8-4 that was bluffing on turn that now filled up. On life roll, we've got a fairly evenly contested texture. Freak starting with a teaser bet, half potting it. Phil not raising, meaning he's strong enough to flat or has a complete float that he doesn't want to get raised off of. Phil is winning, that is correct, Heshi. Phil, he doesn't have too many made hands to stab here with, but his draws can be such high equity that he doesn't hate bet calling it off if he has something like Jack 10-8 clubs that decides not to raise because it doesn't have the nut flush draw. He decides to go with it. This one, I mean, he should be flatting a couple sets more than usual given how deep he is, but would not be surprised to see a jam here. We've already seen it earlier in this challenge. Freak piling on Phil last time he had Jack 8-5-6 on a very similar texture. There it is.
Potential for 100K pot if Phil. Well, actually, no, it wouldn't be 100K pot. I do apologize. It'd be 97.
It's close enough.
And Phil got a win at Showdown.
The 9 Dewey with
Let's
a 3
go.
For good measure. Bang,
LFG
bang.
PG, Phil winning a $98,000 pot. Freak with the overpair, pair blocker, and flush draw. No dice.
Yeah, I have to say that hand is actually very normal by both players. It might look spewy from Freak's shoes, but it's very, very normal.
So Phil up around about 130K now on the day with a decent sized pot still being played on table bankroll.
I like this river sizing, although we have seen many non-pot size river bets on potentially rivers he should be polarizing on, and every time he's been looked up, Phil had been bluffing. So while I ordinarily would look at this and go, oh yeah, it's just a 9 high straight, in this spot, if I was in Freak's shoes, I would try and be cognizant of that and possibly call a little wider than I usually would here. Freak possibly thinking about something like King 5, King 6, King 7, no straight blocker, right around the point of indifference for this sizing. There is the 9 high straight. Wow, this is actually a very special hand. This is the first time that we've seen Phil increase his flop sizing in monotone 3-bet boards, on monotone boards and 3-bet pots. He went like twice as big as he usually does, possibly because the Jack and 10 block a bunch of the in-position player's typical flushes. I don't know, but he typically goes like a 6th pot there, and he went bigger this time. we've already seen Phil mix up his 3-bet pot sizings. I think he has been working on his game, as in tinkering away, making changes. You love to see it. After a beefier flop bet, to see Freak stab versus missed double barrel, this is a little weird. It's not even setting up river SPR1, so you don't think it has as many nutted hands. Typically, if you have like the nut flush here, you want to stack your opponent, right? So what's going on here? Don't know. This might be a float, something like King Jack X with the King of Spades that calls flop bets turn. I expected Phil to continue after he has a larger flop sizing, so once he check calls turn, all of Freak's floats feel a little suicidal. He has a little bit less leverage now because the SPR is like 1.3 instead of at 1. Does he fire? I think he has to follow through with like Queen High Spades plus.
With the naked Queen of Spades.
No. Queen High Flush plus. I think.
Okay.
I think this is a cooler, to be honest. If I had to tell you, I think this is a cooler. I mean, if Phil has something like Ace Jack Jack Ace of Spades, this is such a gross spot.
Phil deep in the tank, 36k in the middle.
Yeah,
I mean, 18k river bet.
What's Freak doing on turns? Whenever, if he wants to jam river, why doesn't he make his turn bet bigger? And he gets the fold. I don't know about that one.
Basty's mobile autocorrect with a banger of a sentence. Oh man, that's brilliant.
Oh boy.
Table life roll certainly have a hand where we could see Phil pile against this half pot sizing from Freak.
For sure. Potential 75k banger incoming. This turn does conventionally shut down a lot of the action, but 2 flush draws out there means anyone's game for what these guys are going to do. Yep, Freak does slow down. Does Phil put his foot on the gas? After opening and then checking back an ace high board, Freak attacking the turn stab. A lot of bluffs for Freak to reach into that are natural to raise this turn spot with. Does he have the slow played ace ace or queen queen though? Filling up on the board means Phil is going to call down with basically all boats versus pot here. Does Freak fire it off? He's loading the gun. There it is.
He does. And Phil firing the gun over on table life roll.
Yeah, this one's a lot less credible. I mean, he's just got so many draws that want to be betting here. So I would hope Phil's extending his value range to, sets that flatted and queen 8 and such. Freak looking him up, trying to realize his equity. Does he have something like overpair flush draw, top 2 flush draw, something like that?
32k in the middle on both tables. Action on Galfond.
Yeah, Phil should be piling this puppy in over on life roll a lot of the time.
Freak taking it down on bankroll. Was that a single raise pot, check, flop,
and then
pile turn?
Pot, repot, call, check, pot, fold. Yep. There it is.
How wide is Phil extending his value range here? Like sets, top 2?
If he showed up with ace queen, I think he has to jam it. But it's pretty hard to have ace queen here.
Ace queen with like clubs and a straight blocker?
Ace queen 9-6 with hearts, something like that.
Freak in the tank, 55 in the middle. Actually have a 77k pot if he clicks the call button. He's thinking about it. And he does fold. Phil taking down a chunky one. Tomorrow, I'm assuming I'm with either Ron Chucks or Andreas. Still haven't been told who's joining me in the booth, but it'll be someone we all love, that's for sure. I want to get in at some point. I know he's obviously busy doing other things. hopefully get Joe in towards the end of this match. Drop him a DM, see what he's up to. Cooking it saying more run chucks. Yeah, big fan of run chucks. The guy just seems to have life all figured out. Poker as well.
Yeah, anytime I hear Runchuck's voice, I just kind of go into a soothing state of relaxation.
Yeah, just go into a flow state.
Wow, surprised to see Freak checking this river. It really implies that he has some kind of showdown value. I don't think he's going to have too many traps here that aren't just going to pot river.
Never going for the check pot.
I mean, Phil is just so disincentivized from betting here. Like, is Queen Jack betting this river? No. So Freak needs to be leading a decent bit, but he goes for what looks like thin value. And Freak, all along, might have been setting the trap here. You're right, he might have. I wouldn't have expected it, but my heads up PO is simplistic compared to these guys.
Yeah, we've seen him check pile versus this sizing a lot of times. It wouldn't have worked that time, Richard. Quads for Galfond. The what, sorry?
Hard seltzers.
Can't say I have, no. What are they?
They're all the rage for sorority girls nowadays.
Okay. Right, well, probably not my cup of tea then.
You might be surprised. 100 calories, pretty sweet, and you don't know the alcohol is hitting you until
it's too late.
Yeah, it's ideal.
So you're leaning over the toilet bowl at 6 a.m.
No.
Classic.
That's...
Classic Richard.
Does that happen to you?
Oh, I mean, in Bali it did. In Bali, yeah, it was...
Well, hold on. So this check call, check raise by Phil, typically pretty nutted, although he can reach into a couple hands like tens of clubs to bluff here. On the 8 of spades, his Jack 10 gets there, and if he did check raise something like tens of clubs, he should continue to bluff with it. Although when Freak Bet calls turn, he's quite strong. Something like King with big draw plus, like King Jack of clubs plus, shouldn't be continuing too light. Ranges are constricting quite rapidly here, down to basically boats putting the money in. Jack 10, nope. Queen Jack against King Jack 9 deuce. Yep, so Phil was up to some funny business there with the 2-pair blocker, and Freak picks it off. You talking about lemongrass?
Who's talking about?
Mid-range tie at Aria. Sounds like lemongrass.
He's up less than $1 million on today's session. Up around about 90, 100K overall.
Phil bet turn on life roll, right? Freak may be thinking about a lead? Question mark. When he tanks this long, you expect to see it.
We're about to find out, and there it is.
Yep.
6K into 9K on this
crying
pairing river.
I mean, he's got a lot of ace-7 and ace-deuce that could consider doing this. He might be sizing less than pot because he perceives himself to be value imbalanced. I'd have to do the sims to see the relative weighting of the combinatorics in this spot, but Freak informing us he's done the math, and you don't want to be betting full pot here. Meanwhile, Phil repping 5-7 plus, most likely just 10-7. There is the ace-7. Ace-7 with deuce-9. Phil had a boat?
He flopped the nuts and hit running 9s to boat up and check jam.
Possibly in exasperation, Freak says all you can eat, which is not very common to see as a bluff because Phil's basically got it or he's folding. And if you're bluffing, you want the cards that Phil needs to have in his hand when he's bluffing. No snip snap. Unfortunate indeed, Thallow.
Gets through, so both players up a buy-in. but on different tables. The break even since the resets. About 2 hours left. Oh, not even 2 hours left. Wow, we're 4 hours into today's stream.
Casual.
Then Phil's been sat up around 90k for the last hour and a half or so, thereabouts.
Dude, all these guys from LA are just beefy. You know, they're out there doing their reps, building that muscle mass, starting shit in Twitch chat.
Well, what's being said?
Sal, I don't know what you're referring. Oh, that's a bad joke. I'm not intimating that, for the record. Oh, Salo, if we've got less than 5-second time banks, there will be much snip snapping to go around. Look at this repot from Phil. Oh my god. Let's play for it.
Yeah, the action's been picking up pace the last 5-10 minutes or so. 17 in the middle.
Cooking it 79 knows what's up. Razor Rooski. Give it to me, Phil. Repot. All day. He actually has a decent amount of semi-left check raises here that are going to drill this river. You know, like King, Queen of Spades, King, Queen of Diamonds, that kind of thing. So he does have a jam. I mean, if he's got something like King, Jack, Jack, that's still jamming. Freak has a ton of combo draws, pair plus draws that are bet calling here, so he's going to have some auto folds, which implies Phil does better by just ripping it in. Does he get snapped?
He avoids the snap.
Yeah, well, and this is bad form, but if I'm in a heads-up match, I'm going to tank here for like 10 seconds before I call King Queen. But that's just give him some false hope, a little give some airtime to their airball, a little hang time. But after you tank so far, we're looking at something like Ace 5? Question mark.
Ace 5 that just like unblocks spades and diamonds.
Yeah, in the tank. But Phil gets it through LFGPG. Looks like a throw-up pot with a third pot on the flop and call. No, 58, 4, 2. Yeah, just about 40% on the flop or something like that. I missed it over on Life Roll. Freak should be bombing on this turn a lot. There it is.
OG Timex in the chat.
Oh, Timex again? Where's he at? What's his name?
Mike McDonald Poker.
Where? I don't see it. Oh, what's going on?
And who's winning? Phil is up. Around about 3 binds.
Big river for Freak. Phil's going to have some mandatory defends here, but in general, Freak has a strong advantage in this spot. Should be continuing with a lot of his misdraws if they have some kind of pair blocker.
Oh, 30k in the middle. Potential for a car crash.
Yeah, I think, wow, what's up, Crick Guts? That's a great Bushido song. And he goes for the all-in sizing.
Mixing it up. Freak getting freaky with the sizings.
What in the world is going on?
Can you imagine if Phil just like check piles there and it just has to fold with 3k back?
Yeah, that happens sometimes when he has ace 10. I mean, it makes his bluff slightly cheaper, and it has the same fold equity, so he's clearly run the sims.
Yeah, but can you argue that in that case then half pot sizing would also work?
No, because then more of Phil's ace X is going to station. You want to move those past the point of indifference. But maybe I'm just making shit up. You never know. That's just
Can always run it.
No, I can't run that spot. I'm blind to river play and through a pots that deep.
Pot size bet from Phil on the 4 of spades.
We could be setting up for a cooler here.
17k in the middle.
Bouncy J. So this river's going to favor Phil on balance, but Freak's going to hit boats more often. Going to be a combination of boats and misdraws for Freak, and then overpairs and a couple full houses for Phil. A couple king queen jacks that might fire off here, but that could just be punting. It's quite possible. Phil checking to the person with the polarity advantage, super deep, not committing a POS in.
Yeah, 25k in the middle. Still both players. Wow. Okay.
So Freak flatted a 3-bet with good aces pre.
Yeah, flopped an open ender. Phil with the wrap and overpair.
Is that what happened there?
It looked like it, didn't it? It was 3-bet pot, continued for 1/3, and then pot size bet on the turn from Phil. I believe that's what happened.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I haven't seen a hand like that in a long time.
I
mean you definitely want to flat some aces, but those were pretty good aces to 4-bet.
What, ace, 8-7 triple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say? Phil's up about 75?
Thereabouts. I think they're close to even-ish since the reset, and he was up around about 90k at the end of the first break. Freak with the check raise on the 8 of club.
Yeah, I might have to leave you to it for a little bit, take one of those fabled breaks.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Richard Gayler, ladies and gentlemen, tapping out for a short minute. I was saying, gotta like that river. If you're in Phil's shoes, 16,000 in the middle, 25 behind for Phil. Meat saying he did not flat the ace 7-8 to a 3-bet as a single raise pot. Appreciate that, dude. Tough to keep track of. Paying attention to another table. Phil does bet pot. Action back on Mr. Freak. 32,000 in the middle, 16 to call. Thought I was saying Phil going to go for it here with the King 10, King of Hearts. Hopefully just has it though. Freak deep into the time bank. He does look him up. Phil trying to get him off of a chop. Wow, 4-bet pot over on table life roll.
Yeah, that was weak. Gotta work on that one.
10-9 tray rainbow.
SPR2, decent amount of pot calls here for Freak. This texture is fairly well contested by both of them. There it is.
Wow, so Freak just with the lead.
Yeah, this is pretty standard.
Let's run it, boys and girls. It's been a while since we've had an 80k pot.
Bang.
Phil can't hold against the pair and open ender turn flush draw.
Say it's about even right now.
On the day, yeah, thereabouts. Say maybe 10k hit it. Wow, 5-bet pot alert over on table bankroll.
Ladies and gentlemen, to the dance floor. All the money. What?
That's disgusting. $62,000 pot going Freak's way.
Again. Are you kidding me? Freak just saying, all right, let's just put the money in and run it.
25 minutes left on the clock. Phil now down around about 30k.
Love this sizing. Phil could put him in jail with making it 16K here.
Super deep. Potential for a 100K pot on table life roll.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a small raise here is just so sexy. Come on, Phil.
Come on, Phil. Just click it to 12K.
You can find it. Yeah, exactly. You can find it.
Bouncy J saying minus 10K.
Nope,
Thereabouts.
just call. Not feeling too optimistic for him. He's got a pretty big disadvantage in this spot. Occasionally the tank call trap with, the 9933 or whatever, but...
One time.
Oh, I'm praying for it. Queen actually does smash Phil's check call range. If he has something like ace queen, 3-bet call, check call.
Half pot sizing from Freak, 36K in the middle. 30K behind.
There's blood in the water.
There is. Check raise over on table bankroll as well. 25 Gs in the middle, and Phil says run it.
Chip chop.
Chop that one up.
A little free roll there for Phil. Queen ball one time. Meanwhile, he is in the pain zone.
There we go. Phil Galfond with the check raise on the turn. 75K in the middle.
Saving himself $250.
But, as Richard and I have discussed, it's easy to lose track of 20, 30K in this game.
This spot is consistent with how they've been playing. 6th pot bet from Phil. Small raise from Freak. Phil's going to be obligated to bet call quite wide here.
Rarely see him check pile in these spots. Seen him check bet fold, sorry, not check pile, bet fold a ton as well. Hopefully this time he just has it. And is giving Freak the rope.
I gotta be honest, I don't think so. It's a minority of his range, and he's probably continuing slightly wider if his overpairs, given context. But so it's slightly more discounted. But Freak setting up a very nice river shove, SPR 0.6.
Feel deep in the tank.
Yeah, this turn spot's the inflection point because once he calls down turn, he's going to be obligated to call a ton of rivers. So does he want to call with his overpairs? He does peel. Big river for Phil. He should be fairly protected on this run out.
Oof.
I think he's referring to that 4-bet pot of King 987 against Ace Deuce.
Yeah, I think it's a very standard hand, considering the action pre-flop and never folding, flopping a pair, two backdoor flushes and an open ender.
I mean, he flopped about as well as he could possibly hope for.
Yeah, exactly. Bouncy J saying, what's the sun runner? Me. I am.
Yeah. I'm glad you beat me to it.
I'm running extremely well in life. That's for sure. There are some guys, though, that just they play. I've got one friend, without exaggerating, had a 3.5K roll right after grinding 1-2, plays a 2.5K buy-in and ships it for 250K. That is just ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Ships it outright. No chop.
Yeah, I was pretty sure about this. Vision likes 3rd pot on 754 Rainbow, but Phil's probably increasing his sizing because they're so deep. It lets him get the chips in more effectively. He's at just over SPR 4. He can pot it here and get all the chips in. He declines. But by going bigger on the flop, he leaves himself open to that opportunity. Meanwhile, jamming on Freak, Phil saying he had some kind of trap or massive draw. You know what they call this? Razor Rooski. There's the massive draw. No good against Freak's top two.
We do need to get some prop bets going, though. We haven't had any in the booth so far.
Yeah, dude, I'll prop with you. I think you're good for it.
Or we're just going to go full DJ and red flop, black flop.
Well, we've got 4 colors. Yeah, that would really get in the way of the commentary, though.
It would.
Maybe we could do doubles and triples only.
It would.
How about monotone boards? Just monotone boards. Put like $100 on it.
I just pick a card in the deck, and if it pings in on the flop, you get like $20 every time it rolls off.
But monotone boards have such little commentary to occur on them. It's just, oh, he's betting small and wide. What do you know? Meanwhile, Phil stacking off here on 983, a pretty hotly contested texture. Freak doesn't pot fold here. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
LFG PG one time.
Yeah, your Bulgarian got in the way there.
Ayah.
Talk about a river there. Pinging off the king ball.
Man, a pair of 8s was good. Oh, Shinman with a question for Richard saying, "What's your major, kid?" Question mark.
I'm not in college, guy. But yeah, it was political science, international relations theory in the 20th century, 21st century. Technically. So the c-bet frequency for the out of position player on the right table is actually much higher than you'd expect, given the density of queen, queen, and jack, jack for Freak. Interesting check raise here. Pretty aggressive. That's a good one. That's a good one. Great movie. Yeah, then in your second year, that's
that's brilliant.
Set me up for that one.
I do love Matt Damon in that movie.
Yeah, how do you like Devil Apples? Dude, his relationship with the girl that goes off to California is strikes a little too close to home, I think. The dysfunction in it. But anyway, Phil should be betting pretty often against check on turn. Got a lot of hands he can choose to bluff with, although he hasn't been doing them. Here it is. All you can eat, jack high flush. Beautiful bet check bet there. Well executed, getting the value.
And it looks like GG's Freak sitting out on both tables. So I assume that means we're going to call it a day, Richard Gayler. Obviously be receiving word from Phil and the Run It Once team in the next 30-45 minutes or so. They will be posting today's session results on Twitter, Instagram, and the Galfond Challenge website. Richard, how do you feel about that one, man? It's good fun.
Oh, yeah, great day today. Obviously, a lot of swing back and forth. Freak getting some momentum at the very end, but I think Phil really battled out quite well when it wasn't going his way. Not much you can do besides get enough aces on a 10-high board and run it.
Yeah, it sucks. Obviously, 30 minutes before the end of the day, you're looking like you're going to book a small win and potentially dropping 2-3 by